Counties of Sullivan, how does the reclamation get done? Is the question. Here's the statement. This is where the financial assurance, commonly called a bond, comes into play. That both the Forest Service and the State Mining and Minerals Division requires. That will be money up front held by, in this case, the state. We don't know yet. We don't know what they're proposing to do.
Okay, so folks, please, okay? I will get to you. I've got a very patient person right here.
Hi, I'm Teresa Seamster. I live about 15 minutes down the road. I have done a lot of volunteer work with OAS, which is the Office of Archaeological Studies. My question is, when you mentioned that you've done some cultural resource surveys, do those include any ethnographic studies? Because most of the tribal use that would involve this area would not have any physical evidence on the ground. It would be collected, if you will, in the form of stories and histories. So that's my question.
Yes. Yes. The initial survey did contain the ethnographic information collected during the fire shed over on the other side of the mountain work, which is the same tribes. We are, as James mentioned, we have sent the report out to all of the tribes, not just the Pueblos, to get their input. And we're hoping that will come in and that will form the ethnographic portion between what we already know from the other studies in the area and what the tribes provide us in the next few weeks. So we are actively seeking that information.
Okay, folks, a little technical difficulty here. Let me grab you, please. Just shout. You look as if you could shout.
Sure.
There you go.
My name is Joaquin Sanchez. We have landed up in Powell. Okay. So you mentioned there's been previous drilling, exploratory drilling in the 70s up there. My concern is, shouldn't there be data from that exploratory drilling? That would be information that would already help decide whether this should occur or not. It just seems to be a recurrent thing. Exploratory drilling, you already had a well up there, nothing happened. There's got to be data that would help. I mean, can't we just use that to decide if we're going to do this or not? Why are we doing this all over again?
Why do we continually do exploration? Basically, yes, the data is there. It has been published by the New Mexico Tech, or it's being held at New Mexico Tech, the Bureau of Mining and Geology. Dr. McLemore has a very good grasp of all this. However, that data is, I'm not going to say outdated because it's still good, but the more data you have, the easier it is to prove the finances of an operation. So that this Comexico is trying to gather that additional data to make the site more attractive to investors.
Okay, I've got a question back here.
My name's Robin Reingold. I live up in Dalton Canyon. And it's kind of a two-part question. My first part is more of a statement, which is saying that this exploration that we're talking about is just the insidious first part of a bigger plan. So we can poo-poo it as much as we like, saying, oh, this is it's hardly anything, but actually it's leading to something much worse and bigger. And that's the thing that we're all concerned about, or most of us here are concerned about. So the other point that I have and question for you is that there's a precedence with the Forest Service, not in New Mexico, but in other states like Arizona, where they actually refused a mining company. And all of these points that you put up there seem to me sort of designed to say, I mean, I was reading everything carefully and looking for a loophole, and I didn't see any loopholes. But there is a Forest Service in our country that has courage enough to stand up against these big corporations and speak for the people and act for the people. And I'm asking you, Forest Service, and the people who are leading you, are you going to have courage to actually be able to get up in the morning after this thing goes and look in the mirror and realize that this is because of you and because you didn't act? Are you going to have the courage to act for us, the people of this state, that say, recreation is important to us, this beautiful place is important to us, the animals up there, the water that we rely on is important to us. And I want you guys to look in the mirror and ask yourselves, when this is done, and when we see the yellow water pouring out of the streams, the way we do across the whole rest of the country where mining has happened, how you guys are going to feel when you think, I didn't follow that precedence that's been set and stop this from happening in its tracks.
So, first off, I love these mountains too. I wouldn't be in the job that I am and devoted my life to what I do if I didn't love these mountains. And that's the same for everyone that's up here. So that's why I've dedicated my life to this job, and I know that's why you love this place, this special place. So the thing that's it's very confusing in terms of the legal framework that we're in. Folks might be familiar with the geothermal leasing proposal that was in the Jemez Mountains a few years ago, okay? That was a proposal that came up. Minerals are classified in different categories, and the mining law addresses those types of minerals differently. So geothermal energy or minerals are classified in a different way than the types of minerals here. And unfortunately, that drives the discretion that the Forest Service has in how we address that. So with the geothermal, I signed that decision. We did not allow that activity to occur in the Jemez Mountains. The difference is the types of minerals that are here are in a different category. It's a different legal framework that we do not, as the Forest Service, and it's bound by the 1872 mining law, we do not have the discretion to simply say no.
So can nothing be done?
So, I mean, I just want to be sure you're hearing what James has said, okay? I think that everybody up here sympathizes with how you're feeling, but this is important to really understand.
That nothing can be done.
There's always something to be done, right? But first off, as we said, with this exploratory drilling, and we've already heard some good input in terms of the mitigations for the exploratory drilling itself. And so that's the first thing that we need good feedback on, is to everything that we can do to address any impacts.
This is going to happen no matter what, right? This can't be stopped.
Okay, I've got somebody waiting here from the Acequias who would like to speak.
Thank you. My name is Ralph Vihil. I'm an 8th generation farmer from East Pecos. I'm also chairman of the New Mexico Acequia Commission, which is a 11-member commission created by the legislature and appointed by the governor. I didn't see anything there on cultural sites, only Native American sites. That whole watershed is a cultural sites to acequias, not just here in Pecos, but all the way down in just for public, I know James, you know this, and some people, but for the public's knowledge and other people's knowledge, for Comexico's especially, I want to read something out of an acequia guidance document that was done by the Forest Service and the acequia community. The water management functions that the acequia governing bodies perform are important to fulfilling the USDA Forest Service mission to sustain the health of the forest and diversity and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands to meet the needs of present and future generations. Mining isn't in our needs. Healthy food, healthy water, healing our community, going back to our traditions and taking care of our land. Why haven't the acequias been consulted? Only the tribes. We don't have pottery shards, we don't have caves. That whole watershed is sacred because without that watershed, this community and the rest of the communities are nothing. Over 50 million gallons of toxic water are leaked into U.S. rivers due to mining. We really need to change our ways, people, in what we're consuming and what we're doing. I know we're tied to these, but a lot of this stuff takes mining minerals. Our cars are taking copper. I mean, all these exploratory, we really need to change. Call somebody, talk to somebody, go visit your neighbor, don't text them. I mean, there's a lot of issues. But my biggest thing is the acequias are being ignored, and Comexico acequias need to be dealt with and consulted.
Okay, another question back here. Or comment?
Actually, the comments, good evening, everybody. Respect to all of you folks, the Forest Service, and everybody else here. I am Robert Mora, acting governor of Pueblo Tezuque. We had a meeting with you folks last week, and it went well, but we come on this side and we're hearing a few things that are different, that you did not present to us. So, with that, it causes a lot of confusion, and to us, it is very backstabbing. You are going behind our backs by doing these things. So, to get to a couple of points here, you mentioned mitigation and all the mitigation proposals here. The best kind of mitigation you could do here is not to have this project happen. Also, the Pueblo of Jemez, this is their homeland. And if a lot of you folks here don't know about that, please read up on history. I don't know if the folks from Jemez have come up to do a TCP survey. That's one thing that hasn't been done. When you talk about categorical exclusion, if those people come up here and show you their TCPs, would that be enough to stop the project also? The other thing that we see happening is that a lot of things that you tell us are lies. You tell us one thing and you do things behind our backs. And now this is going on here in this community, and you're doing things behind their backs also. I don't think things are coming to light the way they should be. We ask for clarity, we ask for honesty, but we don't get it. So, with that, I do hope at some point the folks from Jemez will come up here and do a survey. The other thing, in those historical ages before Europeans got here, within their homelands here, I don't know if any of their traditional farmlands have been identified or where their acequias ran. And this is concurrent with what the gentleman here is saying. So, you have not done enough of a cultural survey up in this direction. And it behooves you to do so. We told you at our council meeting that we are standing opposed to this project. And I'm pretty sure that Pueblo Famous will also. The other thing that was disclosed to us by one of your folks is that that person said that there had been drilling already done. And I'm not talking about the previous ones from years back. Seems like it was more recent. So if that has happened, it has not been disclosed. The other thing is that with this well that they're proposing to use for water, why was the community not notified about that application so they could have their say-so on that? So there are a lot of things that are basically working against you at this point, and you're failing to see the point. And lastly, we have our delegation in Washington, D.C., and I'm talking about our travel delegation. Governor Herrera, Lieutenant Governor Vigil, and former Governor Mitchell are in D.C. They spoke to our congressionals regarding this project, and excuse me, and at this point, I'm happy to inform you that Senators Heinrich and Udall also oppose this project. You folks basically have a long way to go if you're going to convince anybody about the good of this project. But I'm here to inform you that yes, Pueblo of Tesuque does stand opposed to this project. Thank you.
Another question back here?
I have more of a comment. My name is Eladio Romero, former state historian from New Mexico. And I understand this whole thing from the historical perspective, and so I want to share a little bit with you. The Mining Act of 1872 has been used, of course, to take resources from, especially this state, and get away with whatever they wanted to for a long, long time. And all of this area that they're talking about is stolen land. It was stolen by the U.S. Forest Service. You need to understand that. These were common lands for the Pueblos, common lands for the Jicarilla Mountain Apaches, the Orilleros, and they were also common lands for the land grants, the land grantees that came afterwards. Okay. They were stolen during the Court of Private Land Claims that convened in 1891 to 1904, and then they were handed over to the U.S. Forest Service so they could take care of them for us. So you gotta think back that far to understand why we are in the situation we're in now. I went on the website of New World Cobalt, okay? Just Google it. Go on that website, and you're going to see their little plan. And their little plan is like, they consider it a done deal. If you just read through the whole thing, it's like it's a done deal. They're out there asking for money, they're out there, look at it. I don't know whether they'll take it off now from the web, but I have it copied. So if you need a copy, I can get you a copy. But you need to read through that, because this is the way it usually is. It's the same thing with the FFA and airports. The FFA is God. And what they do, they say, we're going to put an airport here, and we don't give a damn what any of you think. I don't care how many of you come and complain. And they do it. And the same thing with P&M and a lot of corporations that are here, monopolies, that basically take over the legislature, take over the whole political process, and do what they want. And so this has to stop here. If it doesn't stop at this point, they're just going to go on business as usual.
Hey, I had my hand up the whole time, and you ignored me.
I'll come back to you, all right? Thank you.
My name is Dean Williamson. I've lived over 40 years kind of over the mountain towards Collier from there. First, just a quick general comment, although it's very important, it seems to be on everybody's minds one way or the other, and that is before something like this scoping takes place on the initial steps of exploration, there should be an overview, like suppose it all works out great and they find something they want to take out or convince investors that they can profit from. Before that, there should be, what if it works? Is it something that we'd want to go on and do? I think that's probably not the case. But as a general remark on the process, I'm very interested about the paths where they do this. It looks like a lot of steep slopes. Down there, be cut and fill. I don't know, getting to and fro with a rig and the trucks that are needed to keep it going. How large are these pads projected to be? And do they have to be bladed out flat? That's all.
Okay, yeah, I should have covered that a little more in my presentation, I'm sorry. The maximum size would be 60 foot by 40 foot.
How many?
No more than 30. They are looking at 30 drill holes. But if they can get 3 or 4 drill holes on one pad, of course, that's fewer pads that they need to construct.
And how are those parts regulated?
Okay, his other question was, how much leveling is going to be needed? These are already left over from the previous exploration, so very minimal grading will be necessary. They are required to push the topsoil aside to preserve that, do their drilling, and then pull the topsoil back across the pad.
Okay, thank you. And my apologies for missing you before.
Oh, thank you. Grant Morley, Pecos. Well, I do have a comment about the roads and then a question about it. That road going up Sawyer's Mesa, that's the, if I understand it, that's the primary access road. And it's a very steep grade, probably over 10%, and it's a one-lane road currently. I don't think you're going to develop that road and make it any wider. It's one lane currently without a big drilling rig going over it, and you have to back up hundreds of feet to get 2 people to get by each other on that road. That's the main road getting into the area. So this question is for Larry. The first speaker, I think it was Larry, is that right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So are all the roads, all the mentioned roads that you mentioned, are they open and numbered on the current travel management map?
They are not open, they are numbered, they are administrative use only roads.
Okay.
But they are part of travel management as administrative use roads.
Okay, so they're all the roads that you're, for the exploratory process are currently administrative numbered roads on the travel management map.
That they are closed to the public, but yes.
Right.
So they don't show up on the map we hand out. That is correct.
Oh, yeah, because I didn't think they did. Okay, so they're closed to the public, but they're open to the company that wants to do the exploration. And I guess as a brief comment, I would just say that I think that we should be here today to show our support for expanding the Pecos wilderness into this area, from Dalton Creek, Macho Creek, Indian Creek, Doctor Creek, and those drainages instead of this process. I think this is the wrong direction.
Okay, I'm going to stop off here and there, and then I'm going to get you over there. Your hand's been up so long.
My name is John McLeod. I live over the mountain in Mineral Hill, and we have 2 representatives of Comexico here today. They're going to be looking for investors. It's quite likely this is going to go through because these folks, who I don't doubt your love of the land and the mountains and all of that, you're tied to the laws that are restricting what you can and cannot do. So I think the only thing we can do right now and I want you to think about this. And if you agree with this, to stand up. You'd be standing up to say, if this goes through, I would consider breaking the law, nonviolent civil disobedience, to stop this from happening, because it's going to be hard for them to find investors that know the town is so up in arms against this. So I'd ask people that stand up, that are willing to risk arrest if this goes through. And I want you to look at yourself. Stand up and look at all these people and say, they will stop your investors from coming in here.
Two questions, if I may. Your categorical exclusion, I apologize. Leland McFerrin, I am Vice President of the Upper Pecos Watershed Association, and I'm also on the Board of Directors of the Pecos Business Association. Categorical exclusion is the lowest of the categories. We do appreciate that you have modified the plan of operation to not use in-ground mud pits and to use above-ground storage tanks. However, you are expanding the impact of those chemicals not only to the drilling site, but all the way down the canyon and to wherever those chemicals need to be disposed of at. My problem is, why doesn't the NEPA process include the entire canyon from Dalton up to Indian Creek, where the road is the narrowest, where there are no shoulders, and where the road is at the same level of the river? And what kind of emergency plans do they have in place to correct any spillage of that mud chemical, not only onto the ground, but into the river if there is an accident with these huge pumping trucks?
First, as you noted, it is not something they proposed, so they have not developed an emergency reaction plan yet.
Okay, let's start with the EIS and the categorical exclusion.
Okay, the question there is,
Why isn't it a full NEPA or a full EIS?
why aren't we doing a full EIS?
So again, so when we looked at the categories earlier, there were these listed resource conditions. Okay? And so based on what the current plan of operations that are working, that they're proposed, it perfectly fits in there. And again, it's based on the past experiences relative to that type of project. And so because it fits that, we can legally use that categorical exclusion. Now, you brought up maybe some issues with the mud, and that's the kind of information we need for you to state in your written comments to us, so we can consider that. And so once we start getting comments from all of you, hopefully relative to the proposal, then we're going to sit back and analyze, and we're going to look at it and say, okay, does this still fit into a category exclusion or not? It may at the end of the day, or it may not, but that's why we're here, is we're looking for those kinds of concerns from you to help us with that. But based on our initial analysis, that's the level of input it's fallen into.
Good, thank you. Here.
Thank you so much. My name is Lee Einer. I live in Las Vegas, New Mexico. I forage in the Santa Fe National Forest, and I wanted to talk a little bit. We saw that HGI. Now that's an abbreviation for the Latin name of the Holy Ghost flocks. How rare is it? It lives only in a stretch 2 or 3 miles long in the Holy Ghost Canyon here in New Mexico and no place else on the planet. There's no reclaiming that if you biff it. That's the loss of a species. We're in a really fantastic place where the Sangre de Cristos meet the Great Plains. It's an ecotone. There's amazing species diversity. We have hundreds of species of flora in New Mexico that are found nowhere else. They're New Mexico species. And when we deal with a habitat and an ecosystem, I want to be tactful and respectful. If we view a species in isolation, we're ignoring the fact that it is a part of an incredibly interconnected, complex system, and there are unintended consequences. One question I have for you: how confident are you that all of the plant species in the Santa Fe National Forest in this area have even been exhaustively inventoried? You may not even know what you're losing. And this is worth fighting about. This is worth fighting over. My only other comment, in solidarity with Brother McLeod over here, this is where Edward Abbey got his start, for those of you who know the man. You need to be mindful of the barrier token.
My name is Pablo Sanchez. Our family has land up in Cowles. I was kind of disturbed when one of the gentlemen here said, well, that they were counting on us to bring up things like what happens if there's an accident, if there's a spill. Isn't that automatically, or should be automatically, included in rules or any kind of protection? I mean, is that up to us to bring that up to you? Isn't this something that has happened over and over through the years? I mean, it's just like the big pipeline where they said, oh, we're not going to have any kind of spills, and they've already had all kinds of spills. Can you guys see this happening? And is there already rules that say what they have to do? Can you clarify that, please?
Yeah, good question. So what is the responsibility of the public to raise these issues, and how does that fit into your responsibilities as a federal agency?
Dealing with specifically raising issues, that is the purpose of scoping, is for you to raise these issues to us. Whether we have already considered them or not, you need to raise them to us. You need to put it in the written record that you have raised it to us. Yes, we probably would have thought about having spill containment issues coming down the canyon. Yes, there are regulations that address that. There's the Clean Water Act. Some of the folks in the Environment Department can probably help me out here. Those are state regulations that are required. So yes, it would have been addressed at some point.
Now Trump is trying to eliminate the Clean Water Act or weaken it. What's the future of that?
I'm going to have to defer you to the congressional delegation on that.
Okay, thank you. We've got a question over here.
My name is Claudia Floyd, and I am a resident of Pecos. I wonder, talking about hazards, we haven't said a thing about the fire dangers associated with mining. There are combustible fuels there, there's heavy equipment, all you need is one spark and we've got the forest on fire. And we know about fire here in Pecos and we don't want to have another one. I also want to draw your attention to the 1976 Federal Land Policy and Management Act, which applies, I'm sure, to all public lands. And it says that no private party should have unrestricted use of any public resource without paying the fair market value. And I'm talking about the water. We pay for water here in Pecos. And you're going to give a gift of water from that well to the company. I do not understand why that was the case. Another thing is we need to protect our streams. And the Santa Fe Hard Rock Mining Ordinance, which was recently passed, mandates 1,000 feet of any away from streams for any equipment or any drilling, and what provide for is only 100 feet. That's not enough to provide protection for our streams, for the Rio Grande cutthroat trout and other species. And in the Santa Fe Hard Rock Mining Ordinance, and I can cite the the code and all that if you want, but it requires 1,000 feet, not 100 feet away from streams for all mining activity.
Thank you.
I got lost in I think you raised 3 points. What is the first one? Fire. Oh, okay, fire. That's the easy one. Again, that's the beauty of working October through December, is the fire season is pretty much over.
Don't they have a whole year to do this?
No, they only have, for the drilling portion, they have October through February, because October ends the breeding season and February starts the breeding season for the owls, so they cannot operate during the breeding seasons. They can only operate in that 4 months between. So that, the gift of the water is not something we have any control over. That is a state resource. The state allocates the water. They have to go to the state engineer to get that permit. What was the final point? Oh, the county ordinance.
The 1,000 feet
The offset required by the county ordinance. That is something the county is going to have to address. That is not a federal regulation.
Well, I assume that you would honor that.
No.
No. Why not? That is the law. It's an ordinance. And the San Miguel County Council is also working on their own ordinance, which is going to follow Santa Fe's very closely. So I think that the local governments also have power, they have resources, and they have the right to speak also, because they speak for us.
And so, I mean, this is a profound question. What's the interaction or the relationship between local government ordinance, state, and federal? And how do they either have authority over each other, interact, influence each other, or not? There's probably a college course on that.
I don't know that I have a full answer on that. I know that the counties have passed some ordinances, and we work closely with the county, so we'll work with them on that. Ultimately, in terms of actions on federal land, federal law has precedence in that case, but we'll definitely work with the county on that. I do want to address this fire thing in particular, because even though it's outside of our the more normal part of our fire season, that's always a concern of activities on the forest. That's what keeps me up at night, and Steve. So when we have activities on the forest, we have standard operating procedures for folks that are permitted to do work or things on the forest. Those things, we would consider those if there's any issue with fire risk. we would make sure that those types of plans are in place to mitigate fire risk from sparks or something from activities for that. And we have standard operating procedures for that for lots of activities on the forest.
Great, thank you. I've got a lot more hands I'm well aware of. We have 20 more minutes, so those of you remaining to speak, please just be as efficient as you can. Appreciate it.
My name is Christine Van Dornick. I'm a local resident here in Pecos. There was a recent article in the Santa Fe Reporter where they interviewed Comexico, and they talked about water usage. They're proposing to use a quantity that probably wasn't familiar to a lot of people. They said about 3 acre-feet. That quantity in gallons is 980,000 gallons. My question is, they don't know the quantity or the volume that can come from that well. If the well doesn't provide enough volume, would they be able to drill another well in the area?
Would they be allowed to drill a water well if they needed it? Yes, it is allowed. It would require another process. They would have to apply for that and get another process, yes.
Good. Here's another question.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Roybal. I just want to ask a question regarding the existing well they're going to be using water from. Why was that not capped the last time? So my question again is, the existing well that you're taking the water from, it's from a prior project. Why was that never capped?
I don't know.
Second part, then how can we trust that you're going to make sure that the next 30 holes are going to be capped when the prior one was not?
The water well is different than a core hole. And so yes, that is what my job will be, is to inspect these sites as they're drilled and as they're reclaimed and make sure they meet the standards. The State Mining and Minerals Division will also have inspections doing the same thing.
But there's no explanation why the prior well was not capped?
I imagine the prior well was not capped because somebody saw a use for it in the future, the range permittee.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, my name is Teresa Stewart, a Pecos resident. I really do feel like you are not the enemy, but Comexico is, and we who live here view our mountains as sacred, and what we've experienced, we have a really bad taste in our mouth from what has gone on in the past. So my question is, you keep implying, and I appreciate you want to know more information about what our concerns are, but more so, I feel like if I make comments, and I write my comments down and send them to you, my deepest comment is, this, as Robin said so well, can lead to something much worse. And I don't appreciate, respectfully, what you're saying, that your comments can only be to this specific exploratory drilling, because we're not idiots. This leads to mining if it's profitable. So when I want to make a comment, I want to say, I don't want that to go there, and I would appreciate your hearing that.
Hi, my name is Ben Gillock. I live in Las Vegas, New Mexico. I'm a transplant here. But I just have a quick question. I was wondering if the Comexico people could stand up so we could see who you guys are.
Okay, and I want to just repeat what we said at the beginning of the meeting, that this is a Forest Service meeting, and that you are welcome to talk to them when this meeting is over.
I just want you to look at everyone in this room and just know that there are hundreds of people for every one of us, and we don't want you here. We don't want you drilling in the earth here.
All right, my name is Brandon Nelson.
interact with all the other water table, the aquifers, all the other water underneath the earth before it comes pulled back out and taken like safely for disposal. And so I'm wondering, you can't even, I know you can't monitor that, so knowing that you can't monitor the effect that that's having on the water, how can you even think about proceeding with this?
Another very good point. Something we did not discuss, my oversight again, is these holes are cased as they go through the aquifer. They actually run a PVC pipe down. It will be pulled out prior to plugging, so it will not interfere with the surface aquifers.
Okay, I'm moving. I'm trying to get everybody that I can. I'm in the back corner here.
I'm Garrett Benacloss. I'm born and raised in Santa Fe and grew up hunting and fishing up in the mountains here. There's a camp counselor at Brush Ranch. So you should know this, but that's a Keystone Wildlife Corridor. And Jones Hill interconnects the whole Santa Fe watershed with all the other 5 watersheds and the whole Pecos ecosystem. And the elk and the deer and the turkeys and the bear use that Keystone Wildlife Corridor all the time. And I think the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, if you haven't been told that, that's pretty simple. So to answer your question, Larry, it is a critical place for not just game species, but non-game species. And so that information I wanted to share with you. I have a question that I'd like you to address the critical minerals order that the Trump administration issued. And that is a directive that came down from on high, directing you all to essentially fast track these types of developments on our public lands. And I have a real honest question for you. Is your allegiance as agency people, is it to the administration or is your allegiance to this community? And you have to make a choice. And I want you to answer that question. All 3 of you, I want you to answer that question honestly.
To address the first issue, does the Strategic Minerals Act have any impact on this operation? No, that is nothing new with Trump. It's been going on since World War II. The government issues these lists of critical minerals, says you will make sure that they are available to the U.S. public. So no, this is not anything coming down from Trump. What is my allegiance? My allegiance is to the Forest Service and its regulations.
Okay, I got a question back here.
Okay. I said before that I got into this because I love the land, right? So, the motto of the Forest Service is caring for the land and serving people. These types of projects are the hardest ones that I have to deal with. These are not ones that I decided one day to do exploratory drilling in Jones Hill, right? These are proposals that come to us that we have to, through our legal framework, have to do. As a federal employee, we work for the administration that's it was Obama, now it's Trump, it could be someone else in the future. That's part of our job as the Forest Service. But I have my entire life been dedicated to working with people and the connection to their land. I was in the Peace Corps in Malawi. I worked with communities around the national park. I've dedicated my whole life to this. So I know no one likes this. A lot of people in this room do not like this. But I want you all to know that the people of the Santa Fe National Forest are in this because this is where our passion is. This is our job to do the best we can under the legal framework that we have, like it or not, it is what it is, to work with the community as best we can and care for the land.
You can do better.
Okay,
we
please,
can always do better. I know that we can.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here listening to you all tonight.
Steve.
Yeah, God knows we can always do better. Garrett, like you, I grew up in Santa Fe, Tesuque, played in the foothills of the southern East Coast. Grandma, Grandpa, and Mom and Dad. Spent lots of time in Pecos Canyon. And the reason why I'm here tonight wearing this uniform is because I do love the land. I love these landscapes. Work in Utah, work in Arizona, and I got to come home and do this job here in my backyard. I love this place. At the same time, I've got to redeem my responsibility in terms of my job and follow the law relative to whatever administration it is. That's the framework. Those regulations are in place, and I have that responsibility, and I have to redeem it. Otherwise, I'm breaking regulation. So we are going to do the best that we can because of the love of this piece of land. I grew up here as well.
Thank you, Steve. I've got a question back here.
Thank you. At last. I'm Greg Kaufman. I live in Santa Fe, but I'm employed by the Pueblo de Suquis. We're a gentleman over here. I want to talk about NEPA just a little bit. In the documents you handed out this evening, and in documents that you provided the Pueblo and the other Pueblo River tribes during the listening session, it seemed to me that there was sort of a foregone conclusion that you're going to issue a CE under the NEPA regulations for this project. And I really want to caution you against that. We haven't heard one single comment here tonight in favor of this project. Not one. James, you've mentioned that your hands are essentially tied by the mining law of 1872 and other regulations, and I agree, I understand that. However, you do have discretion under NEPA to determine what level of NEPA requirement is going to be imposed on the project. And so I think given the controversy that you've heard tonight, given the sensitivity of the environment up there, given the concern expressed by the tribes that have been here since time immemorial, that a CE is not appropriate for the NEPA coverage for this project. And that's a decision you can make. I think an EA is at a minimum what is required, and an EIS might be better, even just for the drilling, because as has been expressed here tonight, it's likely to lead to a much larger project. So let's do the studying up front. Let's expose all of the risk and all of the problems and determine the mitigating solutions to those, if there are any, at this stage. Thanks.
Okay, I am in the last row.
Hi, my name is Karen. I live here in Pecos. I have a few things I want to say. First, I want to back up the woman from Dalton, the lady over there, that I feel like this exploratory process is just getting their toe in the door so they can crack it open and do whatever they want. Several years ago, I was a small member of the coalition that was trying to protect the Valle Vidal. We were successful. They actually flew President Bush over it, and he decided to sign it. That we protected the Valle Vidal. They also protected Black Mesa recently, so I think we can do it here, I hope. And because I was part of that coalition, I don't know if there's a formal coalition for this, but it might be a good idea. Get Ralph involved, a historian involved, everyone who has a lot of knowledge. And my other question is, for the things that might create mitigation or maybe we need a list of things that we can come up with that would actually be a reason to stop this. The last thing was the bond. That sounds to me like taxpayers voting to agree to higher taxes on their sales so that we can pay for the cleanup, and I do not think that's okay.
Jeanette Escat, I farm in Villanueva. So, I know my community, and all of the 18 communities that run that road are signing the petitions that the watershed is putting out, because I've been running those petitions up and down the valley. But I'm curious, I was not aware until fairly recently that the mines from the 1920s are still considered a Superfund site, that they are still at an extreme level of toxic. I do understand the legal aspects of what you do with your job, but I know I would appreciate knowing how to undermine you.
Okay, right here.
Thank you, I'll make it fast. Good evening, everybody. My name is Paula Garcia, and I'm the Executive Director of the New Mexico Azteca Association. I just want to thank everyone for being here. What you feel in your heart in opposing this mine, hold on to it. This bureaucratic process is going to try to wear you down, and not the people in the Forest Service, but the laws. They're very unjust, and whatever you feel now, hold it in your heart and keep that going, because the opposition is going to have to be strong and sustained and long term. So thank you for being here. My first thing I wanted to say is that the scoping process, I think, should have had this hearing before there was any kind of decision about there being a categorical exclusion, because I grew up near Rosiada. These are beloved mountains to us. We're mountain people. Who's here a mountain person? I'm a farmer and rancher, but I also consider myself a forest lover. And we spend so much time in the forest. The forests are part of our family, and we feel a deep connection. And this is a highly sensitive place, and this community is traumatized by past mining. I don't know how I would feel if I lived here, if I knew that there was a mine that had devastating pollution in the past and that someone wanted to come in and do it again. I would say, no way. That's how I would feel. That's exactly
No way.
And so that feeling has to be honored. And that opposition should count for something. It should count for something. And a categorical exclusion level of review, but however can be justified legally, I think you should find it in your hearts as policymakers to say it's highly sensitive. People are very concerned. We should do a higher level of review. The categorical exclusion isn't enough, at least an EA and then possibly even an EIS, just because of the long-term implications of this one study, Exploratory. The other thing I had a question about is the mining, the well. And I'm listening very carefully. And Ralph and Hill's here from the Azteca Commission. There are other Azteca Parcentis here with their water protectors. There are dozens of Aztecas down the Pecos who care about this watershed and the headwaters. And so we're going to pay special attention to this well, because it was a well from a previous mining operation. Now it's held by the Forest Service and was being used by a permittee, which seems to imply that it was a Forest Service-owned well. Ownership. The state of New Mexico state engineer can permit uses of water, so the water belongs to the public. State engineer permits uses of water, not ownership. And it seems to me that the Forest Service should have discretion as to whether or not they allow Comexico to use that well, and to allow Comexico to apply for a use before the state engineer. And the Forest Service should have discretion in a protected way to say that this is not an appropriate use of that well. Comexico, you're on your own. So, we're going to be scrutinizing when there is an application, and there should be an application, and it should be as public and as transparent as possible, because that 3 acre-foot number, guess what? They're going to try to make the case that they don't have to do a whole public notice. Secondly, state engineer has a really funny little gimmick that we consider unlawful and unconstitutional because it violates due process. But they have a funny gimmick they're using for their approving leases, using preliminary approval and circumventing public notice and due process. And so we're going to insist that whatever lease happens, that it go through the full public notice process and they don't take any shortcuts. Yeah. So the water protectors are watching. These are beloved mountains. This is sacred land and sacred water. And we're in solidarity with the community here of Pecos and the whole Pecos watershed and anybody who cares about the beautiful Pecos wilderness. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Yeah,
just a few things. So I appreciate Greg's comments and Paula's and others around the level of NEPA. That's why we do scoping, right? There is a category that is the first starting point. As Steve said, the activities that are being proposed generally fit into that category. That doesn't mean that that's where we're going to end up, and that's why we do scoping and hear from folks to say, well, in this case, that is not enough. So I appreciate those comments. Larry wanted to talk about did you want to say something about the water, the well here?
The well exists. It is currently assigned to the Forest Service. It is drilled on Forest Service lands. The option we have is to say, no, Comexico, we cannot use the well. Comexico comes back and says, we'll drill our own well. So now we've got 2 wells up there with additional surface disturbance. Is that the best use of the resource?
Okay, folks, we're at 8 o'clock. I want to ask the Forest Service if we could have maybe 10 more minutes, because we do have more hands. You guys willing to do that? Okay, so obviously anybody's welcome to go when they need to go. We're going to take just a few more hands. Yes.
My name is James. I grew up just south of here. Been a lifelong New Mexican. I've been fishing in this region. I've been hiking in this region. I'm the very first person in this room. You said there was hundreds more where there's each one of us, and I'm one of them, supporting this project. We need the jobs. We need the resources. We need laws. Hey, I didn't boo you. I was incredibly respectful, and I disagree with you a lot. I am excited about this project. Now, right now we're just talking about scoping, so I want to limit my comment to scoping, but I know there's concerns about the mine at large. When there was core drilling between 1977 and 1973, 59 different cores were drilled and not one water contamination incident. That was almost 30 years ago, and we have had science and technology advance today. And that science and technology isn't Comexico science and technology. That's science that's validated by the state, it's validated by the feds, it's validated by independent third-party individuals. We're talking about very good science, and this stuff is incredibly safe. I also want to talk about the fact that what we're looking for right now is copper and zinc and gold. I do not. What they're looking for is copper and zinc, and that's coming from Chile, that's coming from China. There was 2,700 mining deaths in China last year alone. I think it's important that when we're building solar panels, when we're building EV batteries, when we're building all of our technology, that we don't do it with copper that's bloodied. I think we should do it with copper that was ethically and responsibly harvested, and we can do that here, and we can generate jobs here. I support this project, and I'm excited about it.
It's really, really important, folks. I ask for respect. Hold it. I ask for respect at the very beginning of the meeting. It's really important to listen to everybody. Every voice counts. I think everybody's aware that that's one individual, but I am here to protect the rights of every individual to speak and be heard. So, I'm going to take a couple of more. Yes, here.
Hi, my name is Amy Capone, and I'll be very brief, and I believe when you say however, there is a double speak here. In number 3, and you have to have more than one thing. Congressionally designated. How is a potential wilderness area congressionally designated? So with the man with the flower, and that, I think that's two right there. I mean, it's a double speak. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Logan Glassnap. I'm with the New Mexico Wilderness Alliance. And just to answer your question a little bit, there is a coalition. You can go to stoptoreromine.org, and you can submit a comment directly through that website on this project. And I had just a couple of clarifying questions just to make sure that we're all on the same page with some of the information that we got tonight. So first, I heard that operations will take place outside of the breeding season for the MSO and the goshawk. But isn't it true that the company was allowed this year to conduct activity during the breeding seasons? And isn't it true that they will be allowed to conduct activity during the breeding season in the future? I also heard that reclamation work will take years after the project is complete, but isn't it true that reclamation has to be completed within a year to fit the category that you're thinking of? And finally, I heard that the roads that they're going to be using are part of the travel management plan. However, isn't it true that the project will require 1,500 feet of overland travel? Because several roads on Jones Hill were mistakenly left out of the travel management plan. And instead of revising the travel management plan and having a full public process for that, they would be allowed to use overland travel for those roads.
Starting backwards, because that's the way I remember things. Yes, there is 1,500 foot of overland travel, which does not constitute a road. Second question was?
You said that reclamation work was...
Oh, reclamation. The work itself will be completed within a year. That is required. Monitoring that reclamation will go on until it is complete, which of course will be several years.
Not the Forest Service on there?
They'll be forest and state.
So we are taxpayers?
Yes.
And then the last question was the operations taking place outside of breeding.
Oh, the operations during breeding seasons. The operations that were permitted during breeding seasons were non-surface disturbing. They did not disturb the surface. They drove up in there and looked and counted.
But there are operations happening during the breeding.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, part of it was surveying owls, archaeology, watershed conditions.
And then the reclamation work will take place during the breeding season.
Yes. Probably. I mean, we will wait. Yeah.
So, folks, I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to encourage you.
I got a comment. Bring out something to the microphone. The newspaper. My name is Gary Settle. I live up in Canyon. There was an article in the paper this past week about Los Alamos losing several pounds of uranium and plutonium. That's Los Alamos. What have these guys been doing? They're not better.
Okay, as I was saying, this has been a really productive meeting. I urge you all to listen to the congressional delegation here. Okay. I apologize.
My name is Steven Salas. I work for Congressman Ben Milan's office. I just wanted to relay a statement provided by Congressman Milan. So, the Pecos wilderness is a region of significance for many, and it is vital that we protect the surrounding communities from harmful mineral extraction. Too many times our communities have been left living with the consequences when it comes to the actions of mining companies. From uranium mine workers who have never been made whole, the Gold King mine spill, and to the toxic runoff that killed nearly 10,000 trout at the fish hatchery in Pecos in the 1990s, we know the damage is left to our land, water, and wildlife. That is why I am proud to support the Hard Rock Mining Reclamations Act to reform the Civil War era mining law that favors special interests over the interests of local communities. Putting an end to the public giveaways and holding mining companies accountable for proper cleanup must be the new standard when looking at mineral exploration.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give the last word to this woman who's been extremely patient. And that was one of my requests in the beginning, and I thank you for your patience. So wrap it up for us.
I guess I'm last, so I'll be the one that's crucified. I offer my condolences to you all, and to you gentlemen from Comexico. I'm Lenio Rivera from Torero, New Mexico, 3/10 of a mile from the Torero mine. I've lived there 58 years. I own property on Sawyer Mesa in Township 17 and access those roads which we placed on a map when they were doing this road closures. The families existed here since 1870, the Rivera family at Torero. My husband was tested for lead in the 1990s, and the Adelos also asked for that test from Governor Bruce King. My husband was born in 1927, grew up in the mining town, went to school there. He was New Mexico State certified super unleaded. We drink water from the Pecos River still to this day, especially when the electricity goes out. We have an acequia where we get water. We went to the meeting of the Water Quality Commission here in New Mexico. We were all served certified letters to be notified by the company that does the reclamation. I testified there that they put mine tailings on the road to improve it years ago. Our livestock would go along there, drink water out of the puddles. We would butcher those animals and eat them. My husband had lower levels of lead than anybody because all the business owners wanted him tested, first hair samples, but then the Governor Bruce King set up this test for all the people along the Pecos River. We went to this meeting for the Water Quality Commission, and they told us about the aquifers. Some of our neighbors have their water tested yearly. There's been no problem with the water there, no damage to anybody. In all the meetings I've been to, I hear paranoia and fear. I do not see and never heard of one incident where anybody's been harmed. Show me, I never heard one time. And Grant Gorley back there surveyed our property, was talking about the road up Sawyer Canyon on Sawyer Mesa. That's not the access road, it's through Indian Creek, which was improved by Comexico because they tried to go through our property and my husband stopped them. But I've got statements here of how many tons of minerals and elements it takes in order to build one wind turbine. 45 tons of plastic. People are asking that we have a clean environment. Where in the world are you going to get all of those minerals from unless they're mined?
Thank you very much. Again, I want to really appreciate everybody who came. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Steve Romero, and be sure to fill in those comment forms.
Yes, please do fill in those comment forms and submit it. Again, just one more time, thank you so much for taking your time out tonight. Really appreciate it. Please have a safe trip home, okay?